All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our September Fund Management Report. So my name is Mark Fernandez. I'm the popular investor for the Mark Fernandez Fund. You can actually search me in eToro by typing MJT Fernandez. So we're happy to announce that as of September 2000 and September 1, 2021, our fund has already grown by 29% from January 1, 2021. So this is actually the first time that I'm doing this presentation. And if you have any suggestions in the future on how we can improve the order of the presentation, please do let me know. But these are the things that we'll be discussing. So first, we'll be discussing the key performance, the top fives, strategies and plans, and some tips for copy traders and Q&A. And towards the end, I'll be distributing the fund management report PDF file in our Viber group. So key performance. So as you can see, the Mark Fernandez Fund has grown by 29% from January to September 1. So if you place like 100,000 pesos, which is equivalent to around $2,000, that 100,000 could have grown 29,000 already as of September. No? Of course, hindi naman, it's not 100, the minimum is not 100,000 or 2,000 US dollars, it's 200 US dollars only, or 10,000 pesos. Now in July, as you can see, it's a negative month, it's negative 3.88%, because in July, there was this new law that was created by China, which actually stopped these online tutoring companies from actually making a profit. So because of these, stocks that are in our portfolio like Edu and Tal actually went down in 2000 and in July 2021, negative 3.88%. And along with this, there are also some tech stocks that we held in July that also went down. Luckily, in August and September, na-recover. So when July came, we realized that we need to completely transition from a stock that does not, because prior to July, we had stocks that do not pay dividends. And these companies that do not pay dividends, they are actually the type of companies that are not actually very stable, no? So, and those are the stocks that contributed to the decline in July performance, because these stocks had no dividends, and since they don't have dividends, any sudden news will affect their stock price. So moving forward, what we did in August and September is we sold most of the stocks that are not that do not have dividends. There are still some stocks that are not paying dividends that we still have in our portfolio because it's not the right time to sell it for now. So, but rest assured that there will be a time to eventually sell them, and we will sell them in the future once things are better. In terms of the composition of stocks traded per country, we have China, US, UK, Hong Kong, France, Germany, and the others. No, it's there. In terms of one of the things that I actually look for in determining whether a country is doing good or bad is the current account to GDP. So this is the current account to GDP of China. And you can see for the past 25 years, they're actually doing good. It means there's more money coming into China than money coming out, because current account to GDP measures the inflows of money coming in, less money coming out of the country, and it's divided by the GDP, or the gross domestic product. And this is actually expressed in percentage. So as you can see, China has been a benefactor, has really benefited from this pandemic. They actually grew their current account to GDP in 2020, and they never had any negative year in current account to GDP, which makes their economy a strong economy. USA, on the other hand, has always been a negative uh, country. This means that there is more money coming out of US than money coming in, um, and this is also one of the contributors to a growing, to a declining debt. I mean, the debt ratings. No, this can if the current account to GDP will continue, this will increase the debt to debt to GDP, which means that there will be more debt that will that the country will accumulate due to the consistent negative current account to GDP. So there will be more debts that the country will need to incur because essentially they are a borrower, net borrower. Unlike China, they are a net lender because there is more money coming into China than coming out of China. Hong Kong also has been benefiting also from the pandemic. They really managed the pandemic well, same as China. And the current account to GDP for 2020 has also grown to 6.6%. UK, on the other hand, is not doing as good as they were for the past 25 years. Um, they are more money is coming out from their country than more money coming in, which means that the demand for their products and services is not as much um, as they were for the past 25 years, wherein the current account to GDP is almost zero, um, which means that they are buying more products and services abroad than they are producing products and services, this isn't a good indicator, but still, US and UK are major superpowers, and we all know that the euro and the dollar are well accepted currencies, so it's not really gonna be much, but it's really something that we need to monitor. France also, since 2007, has been declining. Their current account to GDP has been growing, so we have to monitor France, and then maybe France could improve the products and services that they are selling so that it will be more attractive to abroad. Germany is really doing good. Germany's current account to GDP is positive. In fact, it's at 7 or 8%, which is impressive. In terms of the stocks per region, most of our stocks are in Europe, China, North America, UK, and Asia developed. We grew our exposure to Europe by 3%. And the reason for that is we reduced our exposure in China and Asia developed, and we transferred it to Europe. So North America stays, United Kingdom stays, Asia developed, and China, we're reducing them and placing them in Europe because of the different uh, tech crackdowns, these laws that are being passed by China on privacy. They want these tech companies to be to supply these data, these to comply with these privacy laws of China, and those things are actually causing a decline in those stock price. And it doesn't just, these things are not only happening on the tech sector. Like I said kanina, even the online tutoring education companies, they're not doing well because China said education should not be for profit. It should be something that that should be for free, or something that is available for everyone, because they're a socialist uh, country. So it means that these education should be not for profit. It shouldn't be expensive. No one should be making money out of the education sector. So that is a very um, that's what is the main reason why July really went bad, because we had some education stocks which we didn't expect that to actually happen. Prior to that, education stocks were really doing well because there were wealthy Chinese people who don't have any much time to teach their children, so they rely on these education companies to teach their children and they were really flourishing because you know how Chinese are very competitive also in terms of education. Okay. The United States money supply or yung tinatawag na M2 is the amount of money that is in circulation in the United States. So I got the data for the past 25 years. And as you can see here, it means that the US has been printing money, no? Every year nagpiprint talaga sila ng pera. But there is no other significant printing of money than in somewhere in March 2020. Yun yung pinaka-significant na printing of money. They actually printed a lot of money in March 2020, and to the point that, you know, if you measure this and this, kung titingnan mo, that's around 300 billion. No, kasi I think this is expressed in trillions, 15 trillion to eh. So parang 300 billion worth of money has been printed. So what's really, it's not actually the amount that's important in this graph, it's actually the slope, no? So yung slope niya, it's not the usual slope na pa straight line. Ang nangyari is bigla siyang tumaas. So that shows you that there was an unexpected printing of money that happened in March. And you know for a fact bakit siya nangyayari. It's really to pay off the pandemic bills. Okay? Pandemic bills ang major reason kung bakit nag-print out sila. And we all know that if there are sudden printings like this, it has to eventually it's just, ang mangyayari dyan, it's either itataas ng government ang interest rates to parang to counterbalance the money that was printed, or the government will either accept that the fact that there's going to be a recession or inflation, sorry, wrong term, inflation. So they have to accept the fact that there is going to be an inflation. Kasi ang daming perang print dito eh, and as far as I know, when you print so much money, kung hindi kasabay nung pagprint ng pera, yung yung pagdami ng supply ng mga services na pwedeng bilhin. Kasi 'di ba money represents the amount of items or represents the demand kung magkano yung pwedeng bilhin ng mga tao. So if there's so much money that is printed, and then we all know na ang supply ng mga goods and services hindi pa bumalik to normal. So there's too much demand represented by the money printed, but there is very minimal supply that will really cause an inflation. But to counter this, ang ginawa ng US, somewhere in June, they already made a statement that they are going to increase eventually the interest rates in the coming months. But as to when the interest rates will be increased, that is still a question that has to be answered, no? Kung kailan mag-increase yung interest rates. But I really expect that if the interest rates will be increased anytime soon, that stock market will really drop. But it will not drop significantly. Magda-drop siya pero hindi siya magda-drop significantly because maganda nga yung ginawa nila eh. They already parang conditioned the minds of the investors na, hey, magtataas talaga kami ng interest rate. So parang sinabi na, hindi nila binigla, 'di ba? Unlike kung ibibigla mo kasi pwede kasing mag-drop immediately yung market. Pero hindi kasi nila binigla eh. So I think kung i-increase man ng interest rates yan, hindi siya significant yung pagbaba ng market. And if that happens, okay pa rin siya. So it's not gonna be really a big problem yung pagtaas ng interest rates. So yung sinasabi ko is you do cost averaging. Mag-maintain lang ng available funds na pwedeng ibili should the US eventually raise interest rates. And it's not if they will raise interest rates, the question is when. Kasi sobrang din naman yung inflation. Tingnan mo yung print nila. This is too much. The US is lucky that the inflation, despite the tremendous amount of money printed, they're lucky that it did not cause a lot of inflation. Kasi yung print nila na pera did not actually go to purchases of goods and services, some of the printed money went actually to the stock market, which explains that even despite there are certain stocks na kung titingnan mo yung price earnings ratio nila or yung price niya in relation to the earnings per share is sobrang taas. Case in point like Tesla, yung mga ganong mga stocks, tumataas pa rin yung stock price nila because most of the people are not actually spending the stimulus money, they're actually investing it. And itong stimulus money na ini-invest nila, hindi nila ini-invest dun sa mga dividend stocks masyado. They're invested it dun sa mga stocks na parang tumataas sila based on the news. Like for example, pag nag-news about Tesla, tumataas yung Tesla, mga ganon. Hindi kasi ganon yung strategy natin sa MJT Fernandez Fund. Ang strategy natin is we look at stocks na hindi sila more on nanu-news pero nagbibigay sila ng dividends and nagbibigay sila ng yung valuation nila is maganda. Ibig sabihin yung price niya in relation to the earnings per share is mababa, 'di ba? So hindi siya magiging prone to fluctuations in returns. As you can see naman, our risk score is 3 or 4, which is actually one of the lowest risk scores in eToro. It means that pag ang risk score mo is 3 or 4, it means that the chance of losing money is minimal kasi nga the risk score is measured by mga tinatawag na drawdown, kung how much yung pinaka-low. Kunwari bumagsak yung fund mo by 5%, yung mga ganun. Gaano kalaki yung binabagsak ng fund mo, no? In one day, gaano kalaki yung binabagsak ng fund mo? Or in one week, gaano kalaki yung binabagsak ng fund mo? And hindi ganun kalaki yung bagsak ng fund natin kasi stocks that are invested in dividend companies, hindi sila bumabagsak ng ganun basta-basta kasi yung mga nag-i-invest sa dividend stocks, usually they are mga mutual funds, they are usually mga sovereign wealth funds like mga SSS, yung mga counterpart ng SSS sa other countries, yun yung mga nag-i-invest sa dividend stocks eh. So hindi siya masyadong bumabagsak kasi hindi siya when you buy on dividend stocks, you do not look at it as parang based on news, you look at it based on its potential to give dividends and its potential for future net income. Okay. Now, if you look at China naman, there was one significant printing in China that was in around 2009, 2008. But other than that, yung growth ng pagprint nila is, kung titingnan mo, hindi naman siya ganun walang any significant deviations nung pagprint nila ng pera. So, which means that China is actually handling the pandemic well kasi they have money to actually pay for the pandemic bills, which is evident dun sa pinakita ko sa inyo na, di ba, a while ago, I showed you the current account to GDP. So, may pumapasok na pera sa China. Mas maraming perang pumapasok sa China kaysa sa lumalabas sa China, which makes China a stable country. Ang problema lang talaga sa China is yung regulation nila. It's very restrictive. Sometimes it's very unpredictable na biglang maglalabas like yung what happened dun sa Chinese tutoring companies na ininvesta natin, yung TAL tsaka Edu na stock. Doon tayo medyo napuruhan talaga eh. So, but other than that, things were actually good with the Chinese stock. So there, in my mind, we can still invest in China because that's the beauty about China is, una, ang gaganda ng mga PE ratios nila, yung valuation nila. So ang mumura ng mga stocks nila in relation to PE compared sa US. Pangalawa, mababa kasi ang dividend tax ng China. So sa US, umaabot ng mga 30 to 40% ang dividend tax ng US. So medyo mahal ang dividend taxes. Kaya nga, when you invest in the US, do not be afraid na mababa yung dividend yield or yung dividend na pinipay ng US. Kasi ang style talaga ng US is they are discouraging companies to pay dividends sa US kasi nga mataas nga yung dividend tax sa US. So yun yung style ng financial markets nila. Don't pay dividends, just reinvest in your company and let your stock price grow. Yun yung style ni US eh. Just make your stock price grow every year. Don't declare dividends, 'di ba? Kasi mataas yung dividend tax. Sa China kasi ang dividend tax nila is, if I'm not mistaken, wala silang it's either 10 or 0. I cannot memorize, no? Pero it's either si China ang 10 or ang Hong Kong ang 0 or China ang 0, Hong Kong ang 10, no? I cannot memorize but it's around that range. It's around 0 to 10. So which means that the Chinese companies prefer to pay out dividends than to reinvest it, especially kung when you pay out dividends, it's a good policy to pay out dividends if yung company na nag-pay out ng dividends has no better use for the cash. No? For example, I have a business and yung business na yon is not gonna be able to need the cash. There is no use to actually store the cash in your bank account, and let it earn 1% or 2% interest rate. So, kung yung kikitain ng cash mo, ng extra cash mo is maliit lang, you might as well declare it as a dividend para liliit yung return on equity na ratio. So we all know naman, 'di ba, na return on equity is net income divided by, when you say equity is asset minus liabilities. So kung mababa yung equity or yung denominator, 'di ba? Return on equity is net income divided by equity. So kung mababa yung denominator, mataas yung ROE. And we all know that kung mas mataas yung ROE, it means that the assets of the company or the net worth of the company is properly utilized to generate net income. 'Di ba? Kasi why will you want to put the money na kinita mo for this year just in the bank when you can just pay it out to the investors so that they can use that money to earn more than what the company can make use of the money. So yun yung sinasabi ko na maganda in terms of dividend ang China and Hong Kong. And in terms of money supply, wala siyang ganun ka problema in terms of walang sudden printing na naganap, no? So sa France, there was a sudden printing made. So like sinabi ko, 'di ba, yung current account to GDP, that's my indicator to see kung may nangyayari ba sa isang economy. And France, as like I told you in the previous slide, that France has been declining in terms of current account to GDP. So because of that, I think hindi sila ready for this. So they had to print money as shown in the slope, 'di ba? Kita mo naman yung slope. It's not the usual slope. UK also, like I showed you again in the current account to GDP, medyo hindi okay ang UK. So they also printed a lot of money in 2020. So, yun na nga yung sinasabi ko, we should be careful of the UK stocks, the US stocks. There is a high chance that the inflation will kick in, no? And if it kicks in, the governments will be forced to increase the interest rate to temper the inflation. Once the interest rate will increase, the normal effect sa stock market is they will normally get out of the stock market because some of the investors would rather put their money in the bank, or some of the investors, pag tumaas yung interest rate, will think that there are certain industries that benefit from an increasing interest rate. There are also industries that will not benefit from increasing interest rate. So I place in our Viber group, diba, that there are certain industries that will benefit from an increase in interest rate. And ang sinabi ko nga doon are banks. They can be a major source of growth when it comes to increasing interest rates. Ang problema, because of that notion na tataas yung interest rates, ang dami nang bumibili ng mga banks. So it's really hard to find banks na mura ngayon. So I wouldn't want to also buy banks na mura, banks just because I want to hedge against inflation, when in fact those banks are already overbought, mahal na siya, Kasi nga, people are saying na, let's buy banks para ma-hedge against inflation. So I'm also looking at insurance companies because insurance companies are also benefited from an increase in interest rates. This is because, di ba, we all know when an insurance company makes money not just from the premiums but also from the premiums that they collect, they also reinvest that. Kasi hindi naman lahat ng tao na nagbumili ng insurance mamamatay or magkakasakit today. Correct, 'di ba? So when you buy life insurance or health insurance, hindi naman ibig sabihin na yung binabayad mo na premium ngayong araw mamamatay na, 'di ba? Sometimes they die after 10 years, 20 years, 'di ba? So, yung pera na yon, it is being stored in the coffers of the insurance company's balance sheet, 'di ba? So, an increase in interest rate will increase the net income of these insurance companies, which will eventually increase the probability that the stock price of these insurance companies will go up. There are many other industries na magbe-benefit from the insurance, but rest assured that the entire investment team and me as well, we are monitoring that as well. In terms of the sector, no, we are heavily invested in materials, telco, pharmaceuticals and biotech, commercial services, durables. When you say consumer durables, these are basic necessities. Diversified financials, they can go from mutual funds, brokers, and the like, diba? Capital goods are products that are bought by B2B. Pag sinabing capital goods, hindi yan B2C, B2B yan. So for example, an example of a capital good is depende upon usage. Steel can be considered as a capital good kasi pwedeng ang steel is being bought by a business entity. Pero kung steel that is bought by an individual, B2C, business to consumer, hindi siya considered as capital goods. Lalabas siya sa materials. Okay? Of course, consumer services. Consumer services are services that are being consumed by the B2C, ito B2C, ito B2B. Banks, I also have a little 5%. I plan to increase this pero I'm really adamant din kasi ang mga mura na banks are in China. So I don't want to also overexpose myself in China. The other stocks that we have is real estate, food, automobile, insurance, media software, tech, transpo, household, consumer durables, and utilities. Actually, I think this should be here, 7%. In terms of the change in the sectors that we invested in, so from last month, we greatly increased our holdings in the materials sector. And the reason for that, when you say materials kasi, it involves things like steel, copper, gold, silver. These are items that are in limited quantities, no? So items that are in limited quantities, they tend to appreciate in value if there is an inflation, because I don't know if you've kasi my sister recently nagpagawa siya ng bahay. Sobrang mahal ng mga semento, steel, yung steel. Hindi ko alam kung you've experienced someone recently from your family na nagpagawa ng bahay. Medyo mahal ngayon yung mga items na yun kasi nga those basic necessities, yung materials, they tend to appreciate. So we are putting more of our investments in the material sector. And then we also have yung households. The reason why I have some households is the shift kasi in work from home necessitates purchases of like household items. So I said I think we have to parang contend with the fact that there's gonna be more of work from home, so we have to put in households. consumer durables or basic necessities. So I also increased my exposure in banks. Automobiles, you might seem to question, no, bakit automobiles? Um, Automobiles are good in the sense na I only choose automobiles that are high end, no? I do not buy automobiles that are on the low end range. Why? Kasi we all know for a fact na the pandemic has caused a lot of people to lose jobs. But do not also be blinded na ang dami ding kumita during the pandemic, no? And yung kumita during the pandemic, I'm sure these are the wealthy individuals who from time to time will also need to dispose their uh, cars, no? Or their SUVs or their pickups kasi you cannot say na okay, five kasi may 'di ba, I don't know if it's it applies to all, pero kasi most people they think na after 5 years kailangan mong i-dispose yung kotse mo or else parang significantly magda-drop kasi may iba talaga na every 5 years nagpapalit ng kotse, 'di ba? So that is also not an exception to the rich people that every 5 years they have to sell their cars, 'di ba? And so uh, one of the significant holdings natin sa automobile is yung BAIC. So BAIC is actually in partnership with Huawei to create a car that will rival the cars that are created by Apple. So I'm excited about that company, and I'm certain, well, there's no certainty naman in investments, but I am very confident that that stock will really go up in the coming months or years. Food, beverage, and tobacco naman is basic necessity kasi yan. So I had to put it there. Utilities, I also increased kasi basic necessity din yung utilities. Commercial services, I put, commercial services. Most businesses kasi are still thriving and they need services. So still placed there. Media naman, we all know more people are consuming media because of the pandemic and the lockdown. Parang yun na nga lang yung ano natin, 'di ba? Parang that's our escape from the reality of what's happening na ang daming nangyayari due to the pandemic. Telco, okay, tech, insurance, transpo, software, healthcare. You know, healthcare, pag sinabing healthcare, like mga hospitals yan o mga ganyan-ganyan. Well, I just reduced healthcare kasi hindi naman ako naniniwala na it's gonna be a long-term thing itong pandemic. So, and most of the healthcare stocks talaga are already expensive. So, binenta ko na lang. Sometimes kasi there are some investors na hindi nila tinitingnan yung PE ratio and yung valuation. They just look at on the industry. Healthcare yan, bili tayo. 'Di ba? Ako kasi, I look at the industry, yes. Pero of course, tinitingnan ko din, mura pa ba yung mga stocks dyan sa industry na yan? Kung mahal na, hindi na tayo bibili dyan. Late na tayong bumili. Or kung mahal na siya, ibenta na natin, di ba? Wag, kasi, hindi din kasi pwedeng mag-keep ako. Kung pera ko lang to at walang nagka-copy sa akin, pwede akong mag-keep ng mga stocks for a long term, Pero, hindi ko kasi to pera lang eh. Kasama to ng pera ninyo, 'di ba? Kinokopya niyo ako. So, I have to ensure that whatever whatever stocks that I purchase, pag na-reach ko yung feeling ko medyo mataas na, kailangan ko na siyang ibenta or else pag nag-copy kayo, mabibili yung mahal na stocks and I don't want that to happen, 'di ba? So, kung feeling ko medyo mahal na, wala nang room for tumaas or feeling ko tataas pa pero hindi na ganun ka-significant yung taas, ibebenta ko na yan. Okay? So yung healthcare stocks medyo tumaas na sila. So some of them nabenta ko na. Real estate naman I reduced lang kasi we all know work from home is affecting the real estate sector. Consumer services, B2C kasi to consumer services eh. So I just think it should be reduced. Capital goods, well, siguro it's not significant naman. I might increase in that sector. Consumer durables, basic necessities. Ang consumer durables are mga basic necessities. Example of these companies are Unilever, Procter and Gamble. I think okay pa rin naman, but the 5% I think is okay lang. Pharmaceuticals and biotech, I think I'm overexposed, so I had to reduce it. Diversified financials, well, I think brokerages, it involves kasi brokerages, mutual funds, and the like. So, I think we have to reduce then kasi parang I think social investing is going to be a trend, like copy trading is going to be a trend. So I think eToro will some sort of dominate in the brokerage space due to the yung copy trading, which is wala. So we had to some sort of reduce a little exposure on that. Okay, top fives. Top five stocks: GlaxoSmith, MDC, China National Building, and Polymetal and Vipshop Holdings. So GSK, we all know GSK is a pharmaceutical company. They did very well in Q2 in terms of vaccines, consumer healthcare. These are some of the news, no? I'm just reading it to you. This is what you will see if you will research what's happening in GSK. So Glaxo will reduce its dividend for the remaining business by about 30% next year. Its first payout to decline in 20 years. It's a smaller cut than analysts expected. Some investors were also cheered by the 5-year projections of the new GSK, the biopharmaceutical and vaccine business left after the spin-off. It expects to deliver annual sales adjusted operating profit of more than 5 to 10 years respectively. So GSK will reduce their dividends and will reinvest those dividends for research and development and for some other things that so there is going to be a spin-off in the consumer healthcare business of GSK. These are the products that are being bought by us. So what are these consumer healthcare products? Ito yung, are you familiar with Caltrate? That's GSK. No? So that's an example of yung Caltrate na vitamins. That's an example of a consumer healthcare product. So I think the spin-off is well appreciated kasi GSK is known more on the vaccine side and pharmaceutical side, hindi more on consumer healthcare. And but no one even knows that GSK actually owns those Caltrate, diba? Until like when I recently bought Caltrate kasi sumasakit na yung likod ko. Siguro dahil sa we've always been doing work from home. So I bought Caltrate and when I found, GSK. So I bought this stock. Sabi ko, GSK. Sabi ko, good thing I bought Caltrate. I'm supporting the stock that I'm buying. But I think in terms of GSK is really well known more on the pharmaceutical mga medicines and vaccines. So I think they should focus their efforts more on that. In the pharmaceutical industry, GSK ranks as one of the largest firms by total sales. The company wields its might across several therapeutic classes, including respiratory, oncology, antiviral, vaccines, consumer healthcare. Glaxo also uses joint ventures to gain additional scale in certain markets like HIV and consumer products. While many countries have made good progress with vaccination, there remains a need for accessible and affordable COVID-19 vaccine to ensure equitable access and to protect people across the world. GBP 510, a self-assembled nanoparticle vaccine candidate targeting the receptor binding domain of the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, is wedded with GSK's adjuvant. GSK, while late at the race, is ramping up its COVID work, having a new and tweaked late-stage trial with Sanofi now on the go, and an mRNA vaccine packed with Germany's CureVac and a COVID treatment approach with Vir. So GSK is actually developing a COVID vaccine. Medyo late lang, pero I think it will be more effective kasi it has more trials than the current vaccines now that are undergoing emergency use authorization lang. So, what is MDC? No, MDC is a home building stock. It's the second largest stock that we actually hold. It's a long-term value stock. It's engaged in home building and financial services in United States. The company's revenue are generated from home building and financial services. So, nagpapautang din sila, pero that's a very small part of their operations. Number 3 in Zax. Zax is a parang is a stock analysis company. The 10 most profitable companies in Colorado, we have referred to the latest available profit numbers to rank the 10 most profitable companies in Colorado, which are the 10. No? And actually, ang number one most profitable company in Colorado is ang MDC. So, many people are actually building houses and nagkakaroon nga ng housing shortage sa US. Okay, what is China National Building Material? It's a materials company. They sell cement, steel. They also sell mga engineering, consultancy, mga ganyan. China Building National Academy partners with International CCS Knowledge Center for Carbon Capture Storage Study. Their first initiative will pilot a CBMA model and front-end engineering design to test a platform with a capture capacity of around plant. So parang it's really more of reducing carbon emissions. In 2020 nag-fall nga nung 2020, but in 2021 umakyat naman. So China National Building is a good stock. It's actually going up right now, so and the dividend is good also. Polymetal lifts 2021 capital expenditure. So Polymetal, what is Polymetal? It's a mining company. Most of its mines are in Russia, some parts in Europe, no? Okay, why are we investing in Polymetal? No, we all know that microchips and the race for space will necessitate more steel, more materials, basic materials, diba? So every time you lift a rocket to space or you parang put more aircraft to space, you need more basic materials, right? So magtataas ang tataas talaga ang basic materials. So we have to remember that basic materials is going to be a growing industry talaga. Kasi nga yung mga need for metals and these basic materials like yung mga ginagamit sa microchip nagkakaubusan na din eh. Even certain cars kasi they also need microchips, diba? So hindi din may ibang mga car shortages din na nangyayari because nauubusan ng microchips. Vipshop naman, it's actually a good stock. Unfortunately, it's a good company. Medyo hindi nga lang maganda yung performance niya in terms of the stock performance. Pero if you look at the valuation niya and compare it to their counterpart, which is Alibaba or JD.com or Amazon, you can really see that Vipshop is significantly better in terms of performance. So I believe in the Alibaba, in the Amazon model. And so, but those stocks already are expensive. So I'm holding on to the Vipshop stock. Hopefully, mawala na tong nangyayaring tech scrutiny, no? 5 major sectors, materials, telco, I explained that already. So bakit materials, no? Energy and material shares lead the way in a turbulent stretch for stocks. S&P 500's hottest sector is materials. Basic materials is often turned by active traders because of the nature of the products produced by the companies in the sector. The production of raw materials include metals, chemicals, forestry, and relatively predictable trends, and often acts as a hedge over all market volatility. Kasi these are, most of the investors now that I'm talking to, they are shying away from financial assets. They're buying more land, yung mga real assets, no? So by investing in materials or basic materials, we're actually investing in real assets. So it allows also to reduce volatility. Kasi they're real assets. They're not just financial assets that you cannot see or touch. These assets in the material sector are can be touched. Mahahawakan mo sila, makikita mo sila. So there is really value to this industry. Of course, telco, with the growth of 5G, hindi ko nababasahin but with the growth of 5G and all these many things that are about to come, telco is still going to be a winner. Pharmaceuticals and biotech, of course, yung mga people are starting to be aware of the need for vaccines, and there might be more developments on the pharmaceuticals and biotech. Biotech is more of yung mga ginagawa to modify certain, it's more of DNA modifications, mga ganyan, or anything in the likes of that, no. And I think biotech is still gonna be a good thing. Commercial services, mura ng commercial services sector. So I think we can actually buy them, and the reason for that, we all know, is a lot of stocks are actually, commercial sector stocks are down because a lot of businesses have been bankrupt. One of the major commercial services stocks that we have are yung mga executive search companies. And so these executive search companies, bumabagsak talaga yung revenue nila kasi ang daming mga companies na nagsara, and din ang daming companies na hindi nag-hire ng mga new executives. So I strongly believe na we can position ourselves there muna, and wait for things to recover so that the commercial services sector will eventually shine once the COVID is out, no? Then we have consumer durables, basic necessities naman yan. And then highest dividend paying stocks. The stocks right now with the highest dividend yield is Kiwi. It's 11.23. Then Metropole of France is 8.98. Then Agricultural Bank of China is 8.70. TPI Cap 8.49. And the brokerage plus 500 is 7.51. Okay, so again, I will reiterate our strategy. We will go for a risk score of 3 or 4. We will not invest in non-dividend stocks. Everything should be dividend paying for now, in anticipation of a possible increase in interest rates. We don't want significant volatility. And the target return is 2 to 8% per quarter, which we are able to do naman. Anything more than that kasi will increase our risk score, because it will mean I have to find stocks that are not dividend paying, and usually stocks that are not dividend paying are very unstable, so mag-increase siya ng risk score, and I don't want to increase the risk score kasi I plan to significantly put a large amount of asset in eToro. So the dividend payouts naman, you might have noticed that there are dividends paid already for August. For those of you who have invested for at least 30 days, there are some dividends that you have already received. And you can actually, I made a video about that in mjtfernandez.com/invest to know how much dividends you have received. So, siguro ang tips ko for copy traders right now is, kung maglalagay kayo, again, in trickles, don't put in one-time, big-time. Though, I assure you naman, that all of the stocks that I hold still have room for growth. Kasi if it does not have room for growth, binenta ko na siya. Kasi I understand din the major concerns of copy traders. And even my wife is also copying me. And I don't want na every time na kumukopya yung wife sa akin is yung binibili niya na stocks is mahal. So, that's why I try my best na pag medyo mahal na, binibenta ko na siya. Diba? Para pag kumopya si wife sa akin, kung may extra money siya, yung nabibili na sa stocks are actually mura pa na stocks. Okay? So, I guess this ends our quick Q&A. Is now open. If you have questions, please ask your questions now. Questions?
Hey, Mark. This is Pierre.
Hi, Sir Pierre.
There na lang. Now a good time ba to top up the funds or hold muna?
That's actually a question I'm asking myself kasi Mika is asking me, should I put money now? I told Mika to wait for like Thursday or Friday, baka bumagsak yung stocks or early next week kasi medyo mataas pa siya. It's parang for the past few days kasi since August, hindi pa siya bumabagsak. So it's quite unusual considering the fact na Delta cases are not controlled. So it's quite unusual to me why the stocks are actually going up. So I actually told Mika, sabi niya, should I put money na? Meron siyang ilalagay na a little funds. Sabi ko, you can wait for next week or end of this week. Or if you want to put na, 50% you copy the existing trades and the other 50% is new trades. Yun yung sabi ko sa kanya. Okay. There are certain stocks na talagang naapektuhan doon sa nangyayari ngayon. It's actually yung Edu and Tal. So kung titingnan mo yung Edu, bumagsak talaga siya. Tingnan mo, from 6 pesos, bigla siyang naging 1 peso. Pero kung titingnan mo, nagre-recover naman siya slowly. Pero sa akin naman is, yaman namang bumagsak na siya ng ng ganun kalaki. Kung ibebenta ko pa to, ang kikitain ko na lang ay mga 300, which is very small. So sabi ko, i-retain ko na lang tong Edu and Tal. I'll just have to retain Edu and Tal. For VIP shop holdings, this is yung sinabi ko sa inyo na maganda yung valuation niya in terms of PE ratio, nasa 10 lang siya, which is quite low if you compare that to Alibaba, no? Ang Alibaba is currently at 20. So, sabi ko, maybe yung VIP shop holdings, hindi lang siya na-appreciate for now, pero baka in the future ma-appreciate siya. So, I decided to muna, VIP shop holdings to retain that. B2G Gold, it's just a very small amount, but I'm planning to sell this na. Yung Kiwi naman, it's a payment processor. Medyo bagsak siya kasi nga they had a contract with this with Russia for Kiwi is a Russian payment company. It's like PayPal, pero it's the Russian version of PayPal. Yung Kiwi kasi did not get the contract for the gambling payments, online gambling payments. So bumagsak yung stock niya. Pero still Kiwi has the highest dividend yield at 11, so I keep Kiwi. It's a good stock in terms of dividend yield. TPI Cap, dito I'm plan to sell this then eventually. Bayer, hindi naman ganun kaganda ang Bayer, pero kasi the brand Bayer, and if you look at the PE ratio of Bayer, okay naman siya. So, I'm retaining Bayer. China Construction, SKM Telecom, MDC, Orange, Polymetal, Buzi Cement Company, Adeco is more of yung executive search company, China Unicom, New Skin, Proximus. Okay, so ito yung mga negative natin. Pero yung mga positive natin, yung industrial commercial, overseas land, Sanofi, Telefonica, meron din tayong mga positive. And ang pinaka-positive natin na company is itong metallurgical, which is a basic materials company. I placed 1-2, sayang nga 1-2 lang nilagay ko. And itong Danaos, which is a marine transpo company. Ito din, China National Building, 2-9. I placed 2-9. Dapat pala mas malaking nilagay ko dito kaysa dito para kasi ito yung nag-boom eh. Akala ko ito yung magbo-boom. Ito yung nag-boom. Yeah, but overall naman, if you some people kasi Mark, bakit ang dami ng negative? I don't think you should look at the negative kasi kung ito-total mo naman yung lahat ng kinita na natin from the past, from January 1 to the present, kumita na tayo ng 29%. Hindi mo lang nakikita dito yung 29% kasi nabenta ko na. Sabi ko nga sa iyo, ito nga ibebenta ko na to baka bukas eh. Kasi malaki na siya. For me, okay na ako sa 70%. Let's not be greedy. 'Di ba? Kumita ka na ng 70, benta mo na, 'di ba? So okay na ako sa 70. So ang mangyayari diyan, maliliit na naman yung naka-green sa atin. Mas marami na naman yung naka-red. And precisely the point. Kasi nga hindi naman ito it's a copy trading fund. Hindi naman siya personal fund. Kung personal fund to, edi syempre magre-retain ka ng mga matataas para mag-continually grow pa sila. It's a copy trading fund. Eh. Once there are stocks that are expensive, you have to sell it. Or else when people copy you, they'll be copying the expensive stocks. 'Di ba? And of course, I'm concerned also kasi I don't want din si Mika, my wife, na makakopy din siya ng mga negative na ng mga sobrang overvalued na stock. So, tingnan niyo to, bantayan niyo to. Once this is sold, um, practically you can actually copy na. Bebenta ko lang to. No? Inihintay ko lang na kung kailan, pero within the week mabebenta tong metallurgical na to anytime soon. Any questions pa? No more questions? Bennett, you have questions? Julie? Wala na. Ayan. Okay. Sige. Thank you guys for continually investing in the Mark Fernandez Fund. Again, if you have friends na gusto nyong i-encourage na mag-invest, it's just 200 pesos lang naman. $200 pala. So please encourage them to try the fund and always tell them na the fund is really not more on price appreciation. It's more about dividends. So, of course, yung price appreciation, that's a given. Pero yung dividends, dun sana tayo mag-focus. Kasi yun yung gusto kong mag-focus tayo na malaki yung kikita in terms of dividends. Which is more stable naman kasi ang kitaan pag dividends tayo tumingin more on price appreciation. So yun lang. If no questions na, we can end our meeting.